Welcome to tonight's webinar. My name is Maureen Martin, and I'm the Director of Programs for CAN-DO Multiple Sclerosis. Thank you for acting on the belief that you are more than your MS by attending tonight's webinar. Support is a two-way street. Tips for partners who care about one another with Rosalind Kalb. I want to start tonight's presentation by talking a little bit about CAN-DO Multiple Sclerosis. CAN-DO MS is an innovative provider of lifestyle empowerment programs for people with MS and their support partners. We're the start of a whole new way of thinking about and living with MS. CAN-DO MS empowers people to move beyond their MS by giving them the knowledge, skills, tools, and confidence to adopt healthy lifestyle behaviors, actively co-manage their disease, and live their best lives. CAN-DO MS launched our new website last summer, mscando.org. Please visit the website where you can register for upcoming webinars, listen to our archived webinars, check out our upcoming CAN-DO MS Lifestyle Empowerment programs, share your CAN-DO promise, and learn ways you can contribute to or get involved with CAN-DO MS. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Roz will address questions and comments at the end of the presentation, and we encourage your questions and comments throughout. To ask a question, you type your question in the chat feature, which is located on the left side of your computer screen. So you should see a box on the left side of your computer screen that says chat. So to submit a question, you type in the small box that says chat with presenters. This presentation is being recorded and will be archived on CAN-DO MS's website. You're more than welcome to view the presentation again, and if you've missed one of our other webinars, you can find the archived version on the website. For those who are attending live tonight, you will receive an email tomorrow with copies of this PowerPoint presentation. And as many of you discovered when you logged into the webinar new in 2011, you can listen to the live webinar through your computer speakers rather than having to call in. So the job of the live participants tonight is to submit your questions and comments into the chat box, complete the evaluation at the end of the webinar, and review the webinar schedule and register for the upcoming webinars. So we have a great speaker lined up for tonight's webinar. Rosalind Kalb is Vice President of the Professional Resource Center at the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in New York City, developing and providing educational materials and consultation services for healthcare professionals. As a clinical psychologist in private practice, Dr. Kalb has provided individual and family therapy for people living with MS for more than 25 years. She is the author of the National MS Society's Knowledge is Power series for individuals newly diagnosed with MS, senior author of Multiple Sclerosis for Dummies, and co-author of Multiple Sclerosis, Understanding the Cognitive Challenges. Dr. Kalb is also the editor of two books, Multiple Sclerosis, The Questions You Have, The Answers You Need, and Multiple Sclerosis, A Guide for Families. So before we get started with tonight's webinar, let's just do a quick survey to get a feel for who's on the webinar with us tonight. So I just put a survey up on the screen, and it asks, please tell us about yourself. Are you a person living with MS? Are you a support partner? Are you a healthcare professional or other? So we'll wait just a couple of seconds so everyone can get their answers submitted. All right, so about 90%, 91% is a person with MS. And we have about 32% a support partner, 7% healthcare professional, and about 4% other. That's a great group with us on the call. And with that, I will turn it over to Roz.
Thank you very much, Maureen. I am very happy to be here with all of you. One of the things that's missing from my little brief bio there is that I'm a very proud member of the CAN-DO MS staff. So I get to participate in a lot of the in-person meetings, and a lot of my work at those meetings has to do with support partners. So I'm very, very interested in partnerships and how MS affects people's partnerships, and that's what I really want to talk about tonight and leave you with some tips about how to protect your partnership, care for it, nurture it, in spite of the challenges that MS can pose. Partnerships have a rhythm. It doesn't really matter if it's a partnership with your spouse or significant other or a close friend. It's any partnership that you have where you care about one another and support one another. And over time, relationships just develop a rhythm. We tend not to even think about it. It happens naturally. There are patterns in our behaviors with each other that are pretty consistent until something comes along to change those rhythms. Sorry, there's a delay in my... So what is it that keeps those rhythms going? And I think on a day-to-day basis, again, without or even thinking about it, there are several things that work to support those relationships. Part of it is communication, an important piece. We don't all communicate the same way, and it doesn't even all have to be verbal communication, conversation. But we communicate with one another our needs, our wishes, our feelings, and that helps to support the partnership. Mutual respect, a recognition of who the other person is, what's important to that person, what that person's interests and skills and talents are. In partnerships, people respect those things that are similar and those things that are different within the couple. Mutual support. Partnerships thrive when people take care of each other and support each other's needs, wants, and expectations. And those expectations are usually shared, with not all expectations obviously, but when partnerships are moving along in a direction, if people are moving with some shared goals, shared expectations, it's easier for them to support one another. There are also shared joys and sorrows in life, whether it's your spouse or a close friend. You go through a lot together over time, and those things are part and parcel of what makes your partnership close and important. As partners, you manage changes and transitions in life, changing jobs, changing the makeup of your family, aging. All of those are changes and transitions that partners manage together. And in good, successful, healthy partnerships, there is both interdependence, where you rely on one another, work together, share in things, and healthy independence, where you each have your own interests and pursue goals that are your own, not just your shared goals as partners. All of those things come together to make a relationship that works for both of you. And what makes it work is balance. In a successful partnership, each of you is giving and each of you is receiving. And both of those feel good in a healthy partnership. And the goal is to maintain that balance. When MS comes along, it can really challenge that natural rhythm that you haven't even given much thought to. MS introduces a huge amount of unpredictability into people's lives. It's one of the hallmarks of the disease. There's very little about MS that we can predict from day to day, let alone month to month or year to year. There's also a certain amount of change and loss that's part of living with MS, starting from the diagnosis itself, where you have to sort of give up the picture you've had of yourself for your entire lifetime up until that point, and now begin to think of yourself as somebody who has a chronic illness. That's a major change in identity, and some grieving has to go on in order to incorporate that new picture of who you are. And the same goes for the partnership. There's now a change in that partnership based on whatever changes the MS is bringing. And so there's a feeling of loss over what was in the past as you then begin to grieve over that and prepare for taking steps to manage life with MS. If MS interferes with a person's ability to do certain things, it may require a shift in the roles you have in your partnership and the expectations you have of one another. You may need to trade off on certain tasks around the house. If you share a home together, you may need to shift those things that you've always taken for granted as your daily activities. There may also be some significant mood changes related to MS. We know that depression is extremely common in MS. More than 50% of people with MS are going to experience some depression. And there's also other kinds of mood changes that can happen in MS, including a significant amount of irritability, which may be part and parcel of the depression, or it may be a mood change of its own. And these mood changes are caused by changes in the central nervous system. So they're not just a reaction to the disease or to having the disease. They're a symptom of the disease itself. And we know that support partners can also be at increased risk for depression in any chronic illness situation, not just in MS. So mood changes can alter the rhythm in the partnership. And cognitive changes, which we also know are common in MS, with more than 50% of people with MS experiencing some changes in their thinking and their memory, they obviously can alter the rhythm as well. So suddenly that partnership and that rhythm that you took for granted because it happened without you even really thinking about it, can feel altered. It can feel like MS is shaking the foundation. So I think there's some important strategies that partners can use to try and maintain that rhythm when it's being challenged by MS. And the first thing is to acknowledge the challenges. Without that acknowledgement, they can be like that big gray elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. So acknowledging them and the feelings that go with them is the very most important first step, and it's all about finding ways to communicate what's going on. So people may be feeling sadness about these changes or just confusion. What in the world is going on? Things don't feel the same. I don't get it. Certainly anxiety when things start to change and you don't quite know what's happening, that makes people anxious, and unpredictability makes people anxious. And there can be resentment when things change and feel out of control. None of us likes that. And so when our world is changing and our partnership is changing and we can't get a handle on it, it's pretty normal to feel some anger and resentment about that. And sometimes there's a certain amount of guilt. The people will feel guilty if they can't do the things that they used to do the way they used to do them. They may worry about letting down their partner, other people in the family, people at work, and both people living with MS and support partners can feel guilty about some of these uncomfortable feelings that they're having. If you start to feel angry about all these changes, it doesn't seem quite fair to feel angry, and yet we do. We feel anger and resentment, and so there may be guilt about that. So it's important to be able to find comfortable ways to talk about those feelings, and it's not always easy to put them into words or to talk about them in ways that won't upset the other person. Also, I think it's important to avoid any kind of struggle over who has it worse. I've worked with lots of couples in which there seems to be this little tug of war going on where the person living with MS is feeling as though, you know, it's all on them. They're the ones who have this disease, and nobody can understand how awful it is, and yet there's a partner saying, well, my life's changed, and I'm living with all kinds of challenges, and I don't even have this disease. So without even talking about it, they're kind of competing over who's in a more difficult situation. And you really need to step out of that competition and acknowledge that MS is affecting both people in a partnership, and how are you going to deal with the challenges and the feelings together. And I think it's important to maintain the balance by supporting one another. And that's what a lot of the tips that I'm going to be giving you are all about. So I'm going to start by talking for those of you who are living with MS yourselves, and here are some tips that I think can help you support the partnership, and then we'll talk about some tips for the partners who do not have MS. I think it's very important to remember that even though you are the person who has the disease and is struggling with all of the challenges that that brings, that both of you are living with the impact of the disease. This really is a shared deal. When one person in a family is diagnosed with MS, the whole family is living with those challenges. And sometimes it can become so difficult to manage the challenges you're having that your focus tends to be on your health and wellness, which is important, but it's equally important to remember that your partner's health and wellness need attention too. So whatever else is going on, your partner needs time for rest, exercise, healthy nutrition, stress management, mood management, because that support partner of yours can't be an effective partner or a healthy person without careful attention to all of those important things. I've had a lot of support partners talk to me about the challenges they have when they are transitioning from their job away from home or the full-time job that they have, and then coming home and being a support partner with all that entails. And they talk about how they need just a few minutes of total downtime to make that shift in their heads and to be ready to transition and be the kind of support partner they want to be for you when they get home. So some people actually use their commuting time for that kind of shift. Others need to come home, change their clothes, do a little exercise, sit and not talk about anything for a few minutes, but they need that transition time. Both of you need time and space for recreation, whatever form of recreation you enjoy. That recreation is not a waste of time. That is a critically important part of taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, and being a whole and healthy person. And both of you need to maintain social connections, and sometimes MS can challenge your ability to do that if it's harder to get out and do things, if fatigue is getting in the way, or people's homes aren't as accessible as you need them to be in order to be with friends. Sometimes you find that those social connections become more limited, and it's critically important for both you and for your support partner to find ways to maintain those social connections so that you don't feel isolated from others around you. When you're living with an unpredictable illness like MS, I think that it can be very scary to think about the future, what the future might hold. And people's very natural tendency is often to just not think about it. I'll deal with it when and if it happens. I'm not going to think about that now. It's not good luck. I don't want to wish bad things on myself. I don't want to think about anything I don't have to think about right now. Those are all very, very natural reactions. But I think that when you can talk about the future and the things that you're worried about possibly happening in the future, you actually can create safety nets for yourself so you don't have to be so worried about the unpredictable future. So when I work with partners, I actually talk to them about the value of planning for the worst, whatever those worst things are that you worry about. What if I can't do my job? What if I'm not able to walk? What if I lose my vision? To actually think about the things that frighten you the most and plan for them. Chances are they won't happen, and you won't have lost anything except the time that you've spent doing some planning. But you'll feel more secure. You won't feel as vulnerable and as frightened if you already have some strategies in place for how you would handle those things if they were to happen. It's also important for you as a person living with MS to remember that your partner, no matter who that person is, no matter how much he or she loves you or cares about you, that person cannot read your mind. So you need to be clear in your messaging about how you feel on a given day, what you might need help with, what you don't need help with. Too often, I've found that people start to resent a partner who is overly helpful, who seems to hover, who makes assumptions about what you can't do. But then if they back off, you might start to feel resentful that they're not helping. If he truly loved me, he would know how tired I am today. If he were truly paying attention, he would know it was a bad day. The fact is, we can't read each other's minds. So rather than get caught up in those expectations and then the resentment when those expectations don't happen, it's better to just focus on clear communication. Remember that mobility aids are useful for both you and your partner. If you use a mobility aid to help you get around, that means that when you get from point A to point B, you actually have more energy to do the things that are fun to do. If you use a mobility aid to help you with balance and fatigue, your support partner can enjoy being with you, can enjoy your company, rather than having to worry that you're going to fall, or worry that you're going to get too tired, or worry when you're going to need help. So the mobility aid is a tool that you can use to make your together time more interesting, more fun, more engaging, and more successful. So think of those tools as something for both of you. And just because you use a scooter or a tool like that when you go to a museum or when you want to go for a long walk or go to a mall doesn't mean that you have to use it all the time. It's just a tool to allow you to enjoy more shared activities. It's important for you to acknowledge that if it takes you longer to do things, that you plan for that. Sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that, but by acknowledging it, you ease your partner's frustration. You start to get ready to go out sooner. You allow time for things to take longer, and then you can get where you want to go on time. And most importantly, it's really critical to appreciate your partner's efforts to be supportive and to be helpful, even if those efforts aren't exactly what you want them to be. Even if the kitchen isn't cleaned up exactly the way you would do it, or the laundry isn't taken care of exactly the way you would, or the stuff that's picked out at the grocery store isn't exactly what you would have picked out if you went yourself, it's really important to appreciate what is being done rather than focusing on what isn't being done just right. For those of you without MS, one of the key strategies for your own well-being is to remember to put on your oxygen mask first. So that's taking a line from the flight attendant on every flight that we all go on these days. If there's a drop of oxygen in the cabin, an oxygen mask will come down, and you are to put on your own before you help the person next to you who might need assistance. If you don't take care of yourself and attend to your own health and wellness, you can't really be a good support partner for someone else. So taking care of yourself and attending to your own health isn't selfish. It is taking care of yourself so that you can be the person that you want to be. It's also important as a support partner for somebody living with an illness like MS to acknowledge those losses that the person might be experiencing. It's hard to understand sometimes what it feels like for somebody to receive a diagnosis of an illness that we don't know how to cure yet, something that they know is going to be with them for the rest of their lives, changing we don't know what yet. So being able to acknowledge those as significant losses, the ability to do things they love to do or do them in the same way they used to do them, the ability to be fully independent, the ability to picture themselves as the person they used to be. Those are losses that that person is going to need to grieve over, and your acknowledgement is a sign of support and caring. You also need to acknowledge your own current and potential losses. This may not be what you signed up for. None of us knows what it truly means when we take marriage vows, for example, and talk about in sickness and in health until one has actually lived in this kind of situation. It's very difficult to anticipate what that might mean. So you too are experiencing losses and changes that you didn't anticipate, and it's important for you to acknowledge your own and deal with your feelings about them. You also need to plan on things taking longer than they used to. Standing around tapping your foot waiting is not exactly the most supportive message, so I think it's acknowledging that they take longer, reminding your partner that you may need to start earlier in order to get to the places that you want to get on time, and then build that into your expectation, into your planning. And if you didn't get this by listening to the tips for your partner, it's okay for you to ask for your partner to use a mobility aid for some things. You can talk about the fact that it would make the outing more relaxing for you, more enjoyable, would allow you to do more things and share more things. That's an okay request for you to make. Don't make assumptions about how your partner is feeling or what he or she needs or wants. It's okay to ask. Asking is a sign of respect, of caring, of paying attention. So it's okay to acknowledge that you don't know, that you can't read your partner's mind, and you want some input. If you find that your partner can't do all of the things that you used to do together, even with the use of mobility aids, you may start to consider what you should do about that. Should you just stop doing them altogether? Should you stop doing some of them? Should you find alternatives? And I would suggest a mixture of those things. I think if you start to give up everything that your partner can't do, you may end up feeling pretty resentful and unhappy, which will also then create guilt for your partner. So I suggest a conversation where you talk about what are those things that we can't do together anymore, and how should we handle it? Can we find some substitutes that we can share together? Can you find some new activities as a person living with MS to do so that then you, the support partner, can continue to do some things that you've always done and enjoy. It's finding a balance so that you as a support partner are not just giving up everything because your partner can't do it. If you as a support partner at any point are finding yourself behaving in ways or talking in ways that you wouldn't want the neighbors to see or that you're not proud of, it's a signal that you are maxed out, stressed out, reaching a limit. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. What it means is that you need some assistance. This is a time to reach out to support in your family, to reach out to the National MS Society and say, hey, we're in a real difficult situation here, and I'm finding that I'm really stressed out. We need some assistance, and I'll tell you at the end of this how to reach out. But it's a signal that you need some assistance. It's not a time to be embarrassed. It's a time to ask for help. Unhealthy behaviors may also mean you're maxed out. What do I mean by those? If you think you're drinking more than you ought to be drinking, or using other substances, or you're eating in ways that are unhealthy and you know that it's just not good for you, those behaviors may also mean that you're maxed out and needing some support for yourself. As a support partner, you need to pay attention to your own mood. As I said, you're at risk for significant depression as well. We see this all the time at Can-Do programs when we spend time with support partners. So life is hard enough without trying to deal with it while you're depressed. So pay attention to your mood so that you can reach out and get the help for that you need. And as a support partner, it's important that you think about this unpredictable future and try to figure out how to manage it rather than just worry about it. I know when I meet in groups with support partners at programs, this is a big topic of conversation. Worry about finances, worrying about what will happen if the disease gets worse, what will happen if something happens to your health, and then the family is depending on you and your income. So there are lots of resources out there to help you, and I strongly suggest that rather than sitting and stewing and worrying about something that's unpredictable and out of your control, that you actually plan for that so that you feel more secure. And remember that you're not alone. You don't have to do this alone. Even if you're the best support partner in the world, that there are a lot of resources to help you. I want to talk for a minute about the National MS Society and what kinds of resources are available to help you to nurture your partnership, to take care of each other, to manage your own health, because it's just one phone number can get you connected with a lot of important resources. When you call the number on the screen, 1-800-344-4867, or email this general mailbox, you are contacting an MS Navigator. The National MS Society's call center is staffed by fully trained individuals. Most of them are social workers or counselors by background, and they are ready to help you find what you need as you're trying to navigate your way with MS. So information about MS, anything that you need to know, they will either have the answer for you or get the answer for you. They can also refer you to MS specialists in your area, a variety of disciplines, not just the neurologist, but other members of the healthcare team that you might need. They can point you in the right direction. The Society offers short-term counseling, so some of that will happen on these calls, or they will connect you to a counselor who will provide a certain number of sessions at no cost, and then, if necessary, refer you on to somebody with whom you can continue counseling. You can get connected with self-help groups, so in-person groups for whether you're a person with MS or you're a support partner. Almost all the chapters around the country either have a variety of groups available or are willing to help you start one if you can't find one that meets your needs. The Society also has a variety of social media options now. Many people prefer to connect with others online rather than in person, either because they're more comfortable not doing it in person, or for accessibility reasons or fatigue reasons. It's hard to get to groups. Sometimes they're just not close enough to where you live. So now the Society has created communities online where you can meet and talk with others, share ideas, share problem-solving strategies. It's sort of a limitless community now, whether it's on Facebook or by tweeting, and those opportunities are growing all the time, and the MS Navigator can point you in the right direction. In your community, there are lots of resources that you may or may not know about, and the MS Navigator knows what the resources are in your community no matter where you live in the country. So even though you're calling a central call center, they have access to that information and can help you connect. We have financial planning services available at no charge. You can get a free consultation through a partnership we have with an organization of certified financial planners who volunteer their time to do free consultations with you by phone or in person if there's somebody close by. So it's a wonderful resource to tap just to get you started thinking about the kinds of financial planning that will help you and your partner feel more secure in the face of the unpredictability of MS. The Society also offers financial assistance. They obviously can't offer everything to everybody, but I think they do make every effort to try and help in those situations where resources are not available and people are struggling. We have insurance experts who can actually guide you through the insurance maze, and we all know how complex our healthcare system is today, and just trying to figure out how your insurance works and what you can and can't obtain with that insurance can be a nightmarish task, and having an expert who can fill you in can be tremendously helpful. The same with employment issues. There are people in the MS Navigator program and across the Society who are experts in the legal issues of employment, and so you can call with questions about your current employment situation or concerns you have about your future employment and get help with that. If you're considering applying for Social Security, we have tools to help you and your physician file successful Social Security applications, and the MS Navigator can steer you to those tools and answer questions about the Social Security application process. We also have a scholarship program. So if one of your financial concerns has to do with children heading off to college and needing scholarship money, this is another way that you can try to get some assistance, which is through our scholarship program. And there's an equipment loan closet, which can be very helpful as you're trying to figure out what kinds of equipment might be most useful, trying something out, using something on a short-term or emergency basis until you get something of your own. And there are also numerous volunteer opportunities that the Society can offer you to engage you. And if there are long-term care issues, you're looking to try to figure out what kinds of assistance you might get in the home if things are not totally manageable without some outside help, or you're looking to figure out what to do to make your home more accessible and easier to live in, or any kind of long-term care strategy, the MS Navigator can help you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. There's absolutely no reason why any partners living with MS need to be managing these challenges alone. There's so much out there to help you. So with that, I want to thank you for participating, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have or hear your comments or any of these tips that I've given you. If you've tried some of them and they've worked for you and you want to share some of that with others on the call, that would be terrific. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Roz. That was a great presentation. We have received a few questions and comments, but as you said, everyone on the call, if you have any other suggestions, definitely type them in so we can discuss those as well. I guess we'll start with a couple of comments. When you were talking about the strategies to maintain the rhythm, I asked people to submit some of the strategies that work for them, and one woman put in laughter and sarcasm is the biggest support they have.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that the ability to use humor, to share laughter, to really enjoy the enjoyable moments is a great way to nurture your partnership and to get through the rough spots. And it should be in this presentation, so I'm so glad that you shared that. Thank you.
That's great. And you also received a couple of great comments when you were talking about the mobility aids, and I'll just say a few of them because they're pretty good comments. Mobility aids are key. I have a scooter as well as a walker, and we discussed if I should bring both or only one or the other when we're in public. And one other person said, you're absolutely correct, that just because you have a scooter or walker doesn't mean you have to use it all the time. Some days are better than others.
Yeah. I worked with a man once who had what he called his tool chest in the trunk of his car, and he would get up in the morning and do his sort of MS, what he called his MS body check. How am I doing today? How's that leg going? Do I feel good? Do I feel crummy? What kind of day is this going to be? And then looked at the things that he had to do on his schedule with his kids, with his wife. And then he would go into the trunk of his car and pick the tool that was going to help them have the most successful day. And I think it was really empowering for him and for his family that this tool chest was available. And when people can use them that way, it truly does benefit everybody, not just the person who's using the aid. So thank you for the comment.
And we have a couple comments on the communication. So one person says that they have conversations which they preface by saying, this is a no shame, no blame conversation. And that helps put their communication in the right frame.
Oh, I love that. I think what you're saying is that it's kind of a preface to say, this is an important conversation. We need to get out on the table what's important, and it's not about who did what to whom or who's at fault. Let's just talk about what the issues are and be honest with each other so that we can get to a better place. So that's a wonderful strategy. Thank you for sharing it.
Great. And here's a good question for you. This woman could use some tips on how to accept the role of MS without feeling as if it minimizes the importance of everything else in life. She says she doesn't like blaming it on the MS.
It's interesting actually, because when I don't think it's fair to blame everything on MS for sure, because not everything that happens in life is caused by MS. But I do think that it's important to be able to distinguish when something is a problem because of MS and acknowledge that. If you never call MS the reason for something, it's too easy for the blame to start to fall on you yourself or on the people around you. So I think when families are struggling with some of their feelings of disappointment or anger or anxiety about changes in their lives, if they can talk about it being the MS rather than anybody's fault, that actually helps them to focus on the problem solving around the MS rather than blaming each other or losing temper with each other. On the other hand, I hear what you're saying. It's not always about MS, and sometimes it's very easy for people who are just not behaving very nicely or who aren't maybe doing what they could be doing to support the people around them. They blame it on, it's all the MS. They blame it on the MS. And that's not fair either, because MS is not always the culprit. So being able to distinguish when it's an MS problem and when it isn't, I think is critically important, and to be able to communicate with each other clearly about when it's MS and when it isn't can help you manage your partnership better.
That's great. The next comments, I'll read two different comments on two different types of communication style that you can comment on. One person said, one way that we communicate without argument is writing letters. And this other person put as far as communication that he's a support partner, and the person with MS talks a lot and is not shy about it, so he's just a good listener.
Well, that's interesting. So I think it's great to be a good listener, but it's also important to make sure that in being a good listener, you're not just swallowing your own feelings, because they are important. And in almost any couple or partnership, one is more of a talker than the other. And so it's important to recognize when that's the case. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all, as long as both people have some mechanism for getting their feelings out in the open and for getting their ideas across. And I like the letter writing idea, because then even if one person is more of a talker than the other, the letter writing gives you some time and space to think about your thoughts and how you want to convey them and exchange those letters. Because sometimes in the heat of conversation, when the pressure is on to respond quickly, it's hard for some people to get their thoughts together quickly enough to do that. And so they end up not sharing their thoughts and feelings because they can't do it fast enough in conversation. So I like that idea of exchanging letters about some of that important stuff. And it reminds me of a couple I met who, they were talking about some of the irritability issues, the mood issues. In this particular instance, it was a wife, the wife who was living with MS. And she was very open about the fact that her moods were all over the place, and sometimes she was just very irritable. And it was hard for her husband, because he sort of never knew whether it was fair weather or foul. He didn't know when the conversation was going to go smoothly and when he was going to say something that was just going to send her into a tailspin. And so they came up with this strategy. They posted a little fine in the bathroom where they would both, that's where they were first thing in the morning. And so she had a little red light, green light thing that she would put up, and she could tell when her moods were not great, when she was in a particularly irritable way, and she would put the little red sign up on the wall. And it just alerted him that this was not a great day for her, that he needed to give her space and tread carefully. And because they had this way of communicating when it was a rough time, he wasn't running into storms, and he could be supportive of her by giving her that space that she needs. So I think whatever ways you find to communicate, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you've developed a system that you both understand and can use comfortably.
That's great. The next question asks, I feel like I rely on my partner so much. How can I feel like I'm giving back to my partner with my physical limitations?
Great question. And I think that's all about that, keeping that balance. If one of you feels as though you're always on the receiving end and never giving, you don't feel like a full and valuable partner. Now, there's no way that I can answer that for you, but your partner can answer it. So if you say to your partner, I know that I rely on you for so many things because I need help with so many things, but I want you to know that I also want to be a support for you. How can I do that? What could I do for you that would feel good? So if you remember back the beginning of when I was talking about that sometimes the support partners have said, you know, when I walk in the door from work, I need 10 minutes. I'm ready to help. I'm ready to do things. I'm ready to get dinner on the table. I'm ready to help my husband or wife do anything that needs doing, but I need that 10 minutes. So you might say to your partner, what could I do that would feel good for you? And it might be just something like that. Let me just have 10 minutes when I walk in the door to change my clothes and wash my face and sit and just not do anything, just for 10 minutes. Or it might be, I would love it if you would listen to some music with me, or let me talk to you about my day because I had this really frustrating day and I just need to talk about it. So your partner is going to be the best person to tell you how you can be a loving, supporting partner in spite of physical limitations.
That's great. So we have time for just a couple more questions and comments, and I'll start with a comment when we were talking about other tips or what works for people. This woman said, intimacy is a critical tool for communication in marriage, but we've learned to be creative.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, because intimacy is one of the things that can be so challenged when people have physical limitations. And intimacy means very different things to different people, so you know, we can't even begin to talk about that. But however you guys have found to be intimate and how creative you've been able to be to maintain that connection, that's a critical part of maintaining the balance in your partnership. And for those of you who haven't found creative ways to maintain intimacy that has been threatened, please don't hesitate to talk about that with your healthcare team. You can get some very helpful suggestions about how to maintain comfortable intimacy, how to deal with whatever symptoms might be getting in the way. And the last thing that we want you to do is to just sort of give up and say, well, that's too hard, or that's not comfortable, or we can't do that anymore, or we're too tired, or there is no time, because you gradually lose that important part of your connection that helps you maintain your partnership. So thank you for mentioning that, and I encourage the rest of you to reach out for some assistance if you haven't been able to do that yourselves.
Great. I think we have time for one last question, and this question is from a support partner who asks, what is the best way to convey the fact that my partner has MS to her family members who keep asking us for things and don't understand how MS changes our lives?
You know, it's such an important question, and it's something that support partners at our Can-Do programs talk about all the time. You know, family members sometimes have a great deal of difficulty accepting MS. Sometimes it's because they can't see it, right? There's so many symptoms of MS that are invisible, and they just can't get their heads around what's going on. Sometimes it's out of their own sadness and anxiety that it's easier to sort of deny that it's real than to accept that their child or their sister or brother has an illness like MS. I think all you can really do is to lay out the information as clearly as you can, offer to provide them with information about MS, and then just set very clear limits. This is what we can do, this is what we want to do, this is what we try to do, and these are the things that are just not possible for us anymore. I would urge you, when you're in a situation where the family is asking something of you that you can't do, that you come back with some counter suggestion or counter plan that you can do, so that it's not always just, no, we can't, no, we can't, but we can't do that, but we would love to do this. Similarly, I think it's important to have rain check plans, because there's so much about MS that's unpredictable and can get in the way when you do have a plan. And you don't want people to think that they're just not important to you anymore. You want them to know that they're important and that you want to be with them or do things with them, but it's not always possible. So here's the rain check plan if this doesn't work, or here's the counter proposal if the plan that you're asking for isn't possible anymore. And I think that that's really all that you can do, because sometimes people choose not to understand it.
That was a great answer. Thanks, Roz. Do you have any closing thoughts or comments to wrap up the call?
Well, only that I'm glad that so many of you have joined this conversation, because partnerships are so vital to our health and well-being, and maintaining those healthy partnerships is a challenge when you have an unpredictable and sometimes progressive disease like this. So I encourage you to think about your partnerships and work together on how to make them and keep them as vital and comfortable as you want them to be. And thank you all.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Just to let everyone know that the next webinar is on October 11th at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and the topic is Planning and Prioritizing with Ann Mullenix, our Can-Do MS Programs Consultant. You can register for this and other webinars at mscando.org. For those participating live tonight, as soon as the presentation is over, you'll see a survey appear on your computer screen. So please take a moment to complete the survey and help us continue to improve our webinars. We value your feedback and input. So thanks again. Have a great night.
Thank you.